So what kind of products do you print?
So I printed this this little figure.
Wow.
It's the highest resolution I've ever printed. So each layer is 0.08 millimeters.
Wow.
It's not perfect, and I had to use a file to file down some imperfections, but it's pretty good.
You're young now, but you're not going to be young forever. So sorry to say that. I mean, no, mentally yes, but but not physically.
Hello, I'm Radek.
I'm Michael.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books which I want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
And what came to mind today is I want to talk to you, Michael, about kids these days.
About kids?
Yeah. No, actually, I want to talk to you about money and kids these days.
All right.
So a couple of weeks ago on episode 143, How to Spend Money, we discussed, we decided to put a stick in the ant's nest of the internet again by talking about finance, because that's what we do. And we discussed some ideas that we got from the book Financial Ninja, which is a Polish book, but we thought a lot of the ideas are worth sharing. And we wanted to continue that today.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, you mentioned then the book Profit First. And I was really skeptical about this book. I mean, it looked like another of these like boring business books with like barely any idea inside. And like it was really shocking because I read it the same week as the Marie Kondo book. So those both were two books I read both in in just span of a few days that I expected very little of, and they surprised me. Like
they both changed your life.
Yeah, the Profit First book, very simple idea, but yet in that simplicity there was some real deep insight that I missed before, and so I got it now and I implemented it. So we want to talk about this next week. Actually, we'll talk about it in an hour, but you'll hear about it in a week. So
correct.
This is homework for you for next week. Read the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz.
Mike.
Yeah, or Mike Michalowicz, as I guess he would say it. But first, let's continue talking about ideas from Financial Ninja. So I wanted to get back to the idea of money and kids these days. In the previous episodes when we talked about money, you mentioned how you feel like a lot of young people take the wrong approach, the wrong attitude towards money when they're young. Can you remind us of what was exactly?
Yeah, the problem is that as you are a kid and you're growing up, money is flashy. Money is, brings you flashy stuff. And when you're a teenager, you're susceptible to this. And what happens is that very often, and we as humans, when we see somebody's end result, we don't actually analyze the journey that it took them to get it. We just see the result. That's why Nozbe is an 11-year overnight success, right? So we are like, so people look at, us and they think, we've achieved so much, but they don't see that it took us 11 years to get there. And it's the same with money. Very often when we are young and we start our careers, we think we need, the criteria for our choices is we want to have the fast car, the apartment, the flashy iPhone. I have to have the latest iPhone, of course, and all this stuff. And because of that, what I've observed is that many people make wrong choices for their careers. They don't double down on personal development. They double down on their best bang for the buck, which normally is a good idea to have the best bang for the buck. But when you're starting your career, you know nothing. Nothing. I mean, okay, you've been studying, whatever. You know nothing. So you have to learn a lot. But instead of that, very often people choose the highest paid job, not the job where they would develop themselves. So they think, okay, I can earn 500 something more. I will be doing, basically mindless stuff, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to have 500 more. With this 500 more, I can buy better clothes or whatever, right? So this decision process. And I remember what struck me was actually one of my friends who was younger than me, and he finished college. And I remember that he got a very good job, and he was actually telling this to my face. Michael, I remember you told me how much you were paid when you started working after college. So, well, I got a better job now. Right after college. Like, he was really happy that he got a better salary right after college than I did after my college. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, so what gives? I mean, is this really so important? So I didn't like his approach that, thinking, I got a better, higher paid job instead of like a better developed job. So, for example, people were telling to me very often when I finished my college, Michael, you know 4 languages, you should, you had very good grades in the university. You should go to the corporations and, start your career there. And I spent years after college as a freelancer, learning to code, learning to do things, investing in myself. And thanks to, and failing, and I failed like in 3 startups, all right? But in the end...
And actually, sorry to cut you off, but actually you could take this metaphor further. You mentioned that after college you knew 4 languages, but it was also because you took this, applied this mindset in a slightly different context, that you didn't take like you didn't go to the most flashiest university at the most flashiest course, but you got one where you had enough time that you could spend it on developing yourself.
Exactly. Yes, and a good example, of course, is my wife. My wife, she was very good. She finished her degree in law, and after that, instead of just getting a job in a law firm, she got an internship in an EU institution, and then she got an internship in another EU institution. They were really lousy paid. We traveled there and we barely had money to live, to survive, because they were so lousy paid. But now she has a fantastic job in another EU institution, thanks to the fact that she was there before in these internships. So when her peers were already working for big law firms, she was still doing internships, but these and low-paid internships. But for her, the criteria was, this is an internship and a very good institution. I'm going to go there. They will pay me almost nothing. I don't care. I will survive. And that was her mindset, and that was our mindset. And thanks to this mindset, right now, my wife has a fantastic career in an institution, has a very good position, is paid very well. And when people see it, they think, well, you are lucky that you got it. No. When she was younger, she didn't go to the flashiest law firm to get lots of money. She did quite the opposite, but she knew that she needed these steps to develop herself, to develop her skills as an intellectual property lawyer. So that's the idea that we in the very beginning of our marriage, we hardly had money to survive, but we didn't need much because we didn't have kids, we didn't have mortgage. We just were focused on developing our careers. I was the freelance guy who was trying startups and just failing. She was doing internships. And in the end, I'm running this company. She has a very well-paid job. We have 3 kids. It's good, yeah. But it just took us more time to get there.
Yeah. So I don't remember who said it, but I like the way of phrasing it in as a one sentence, which is that when you're young, you don't need money but have a lot of time, and when you're older, you need a lot of money and don't have time.
Exactly.
So take advantage. It's a good idea to take advantage of the best opportunity you have to invest the time that older folks often don't have to keep learning.
Yeah, and I remember like I have friends who, for example, very quickly bought an apartment right after college. And I was like, come on, guys, you don't know where you're going to work.
Yeah.
and very often because of these apartments, they wouldn't move for a better job because they would just say, I have this apartment now. I can't just move to a different city now. I mean, I look, it's an anchor, which is stupid, and that's why especially as you said, when you have time, when you just finished college, you have lots of time, no obligations, no kids yet, none of this stuff. Because when you have kids, you don't have that much time. So that's why use this time to learn as much as you can. And that's why there's a video. We'll try to find the link in the show notes where Gary Vaynerchuk was saying that when he was asked what to do when you finish college, he said, I would try to get an internship, a zero-paid internship by Jeff Bezos. Well, hell, I would actually try to do it to get it now. So that's the idea, that to learn as much as you can with your time, because you don't need the money yet.
All right. So this is the context for the discussion I wanted to have with you, because I wanted to discuss the topic of saving money, and in general, like the attitude towards finances and sort of finance education when you're young, because I guess there's like two schools of thought on this topic, and I heard them both, and I was going back and forth between like the two ideas myself, and I think I figured out what I think about it, but I wanted to get your take. So one school of thought is that it's a good idea to learn about finance, about personal finance when you're young. Be responsible with money, save money, as much money as you can, change jobs often, like learn to sort of act as an adult in many sense, as much as possible with money. Because when you start young, like you have the most time to figure it out. Like when you start saving money and, when you save money and invest, the way compounding works, like the younger you start, the better it is, but not like linearly, but a lot better. So that's a really good idea, to be like really responsible with money and stuff like that. But then the other school of thought is that it's kind of stupid to care too much about money when you're young. Because you're young, you don't need the money, you have time, and as you said, you don't need to get the highest paying job, but like in general, like why would you try to be as responsible as possible and save money and stuff like that? Like you're young, you should spend it all to explore, to learn, to just like go in 1,000 different directions, because that's how you develop as a young person. And since you don't need the money that much, not yet, then why bother and feel like this is a value you should care about, if it's not actually necessary. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So it's interesting points of view. Mm-hmm. I've been taught to save money from when I was young by my parents, and I think by my parents. I think so. Yes. Yeah, by my parents. Yes, exactly. They were showing me that they were saving money, and I remember vividly this moment. For example, when we were living in an apartment in a block of flats, and my parents were saving money to build a house, and for example, I remember once I wanted to buy French fries, right? And they would tell me that I wanted to not buy fries this one time, but like regularly be buying fries for myself, because there was a very nice fries shop next to the school, and I wanted them, at least one a week to eat fries there. And my parents told me that, no, Michael, I'm sorry, but we're right now saving money for this house, and this house is going to be great. We're gonna, live there. You've seen it. It's gonna be fantastic. And the apartment that we have is crap. We want to move out as soon as we can. So we're trying to cut off, the spending. So no fries for you. Maybe sometimes on a festive we're gonna buy you fries, but not. You won't be able to buy regularly fries if you want, unless you get money for it. And I was too young to get money for it anyway. So, but I remember it stuck with me that they were sacrificing something for something else and for the long-term happiness in a better place. And through their actions, what happened was that they finished building the house. Like, it wasn't finished, but it was finished enough so we could move in by the end of my primary school. And I spent the whole, vacation time preparing the house, and then I could start secondary school already living in this new house, and it was fantastic. They were right; it was great. But this taught me to save money, and when I was starting to earn money, I was also putting money aside to save. I was still spending lots of money to travel. That's correct. If there was something I would spend money on, I was travel. Because as you know, I like traveling. I like learning languages. So whenever there was an opportunity to go for a trip, I would spend money on that. But of course, I wouldn't buy a flashiest trip. I would, it would be, a scrappy trip, but it would be a trip nonetheless. And I wouldn't, I would not buy better clothes. I wouldn't buy, gadgets. I would spend money on traveling. But I remember I would also save money, and this was kind of a muscle for me. So, and it was a habit, and we talk a lot about habits on this show, and I think that's why saving money was so habitual for me. That's why I would always save money. That's why when we married with my wife, we already had savings, and we kept on doing savings. And that's why the concepts from the book Financial Ninja and the one that we are recommending for next week, Profit First, I already got them before I read these books, because I was already saving money before. I already had the muscle and the habit. So I think it's not the question of one or the other. I would still spend lots of money on travel, and very often I would get a gig halfway through vacation and spend most of this money on travel for the rest of the vacation. But I would still put some money aside, So it might not be a lot, but I would still put some money aside. And that was the thing, that even though I was spending money as a young person, I was still having a habit of putting money aside. And thanks to this fact, this habit transformed into a form of life for me, like in the future. And in running my company, the same thing, put money aside, create what we call now a financial buffer or things like that. We have names for this now. But then it was just put money aside because, you might need that in the future. You cannot spend it all because, you might need to hire somebody. You might need to pay for this. You might need to pay for that. So you better have some money on the side. So even when we were scrapping, when I remember with my wife, she was doing an internship. I was a freelance. We had barely money to live by. We would try to still save money and put money aside, just to make sure that that this compounds, as you say, this compounds, and we have some savings. So I think it's worth building this muscle and this habit of putting money aside, even though you want to spend it all on things that are important to you when you're young. So I would, maybe it's not the best answer ever, but I would give a hybrid thing. On one hand, yes, spend money on what really matters to you when you're young. If traveling really matters to you, spend money on travels. If clothing matters to you, don't spend money on clothing. Find something else that matters, because clothing doesn't matter. So find something that matters.
Nice.
And put money aside.
This is good. This is actually the last iteration was very close to what I figured out, which I guess seems like obvious in retrospect, but those two schools of thought are both like powerful ideas, and both like make sense. And what I like, the balance between the two that I figured out is that again, as you said, even if you can afford to like keep growing on the savings, the habit of spending is worth cultivating, because it stays with you. And also like these days when I think about savings, it's like, longer term savings, but for most people, savings are short term, like saving money for a trip, for vacation, for stuff like that, right? So in this sense, to spend money on travel and things that are worthy of pursuing when you're young and want to explore and grow, like you have to save money, because you probably doesn't have enough to just do it in one take. But the big point that I figured out is again to make a distinction about things that really matter and everyday bullshit.
Yes.
So things that matter is again related to learning, to growing, to exploring. Traveling matters.
Personal development.
Yeah, stuff like that. And for that, there's like no limit. Like as much as I want, I shall spend. Because again, like I don't technically speaking need the money. So and there's like growth in that, which has its own form of compounding effect. So it's worth spending as much as I want, as I can on the stuff that matters. But on the other hand, I figure out that I should be actually more responsible than I was before with spending on the everyday bullshit. You know, on like you mentioned, like clothes, like who cares, right? Like everyday stuff, like the way you live, where you live, whether you or not you have a car, and what sort of car, food, you know, all sorts of stuff like that, which especially like when you're young, when you're a student, when you don't have a lot of money, this is like most like everyday stuff is like most of the stuff that you spend. So for that, I want to actually cut down. Like I'm pretty good with this, considering you know, I live well below my means. But again, this stuff doesn't matter. Like I don't need it. It doesn't improve my life in a significant way. But on the other hand, I don't want to put any sort of limits on myself in terms of spending on travel and other things like that, which I feel like are worth pursuing for growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So just to, you know, give you additional, you know, data. So for example, the gadgets. I am a gadget guy. I love gadgets. I love like technology. That's why I'm in the technology industry. I mean, I love this. So we always say we always get the newest iPhones and whatever. But now I can afford the newest iPhone on day one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always like that. Or maybe it was, but I still wasn't buying it. So for example, when I was a freelance guy, I would buy a used laptop, you know. Then after that, I remember my first really good US laptop was the one that I bought from the States, was a Toshiba M200. It was a tablet PC. It was a fantastic laptop. And after that, after a few years working with this computer, I bought, when I was in the States, I bought a ThinkPad, and it was fantastic. But again, I bought a very nice ThinkPad, you know, very well, you know, spec'd, but it was 9 months old, so it was a lot cheaper than a new one, because I couldn't, you know, fathom, you know, spending, you know, $2,500 on a laptop, but I could buy it for half of that. So I decided, you know, I'm going to buy half of that. It's going to be used, but it's going to be good. Later, when I got the first MacBook Air, it was the same. I got it off eBay for a significantly reduced price, because, you know, somebody didn't like it. So I got it. With the iPhone, I got a used iPhone. With the iPhone, the first iPhone I got for free as a speaker. But the iPhone 3G, I got a used one. You know, and I had already the money to buy a new iPhone. But I just felt it was just too much, you know, compared to what I have, to what I earn. You know, it was just, you know, I wanted to save money, to not to spend too much. So so it's, again, now I can afford a new iPhone, but even if when I do, I always think about it. You know, whenever, you know, whenever we talk about technology, we always think, we can afford this and this, but do we really need it? Do we really want it, right? And for me, it was always this kind of decision making, to make sure that, even though I might have the means to actually buy this for this price, maybe I should just, settle with something cheaper, not cheaper in quality, but that's why very often I would buy something used, because I would think, I prefer used but very good than just new but just, cheaper, because I knew the quality would not be there. So that's why, for example, I preferred to buy a used ThinkPad than just any Windows laptop, right, for the same price. And that's why I bought a first MacBook Air, which was used. So I was always thinking like this. So this was always, in my mind: do I need it? Do I want it? And what do I want? And then choose wisely exactly what I want. And then figure out if I buy a new one, or maybe I buy a used one, because the the loss of value is so much that I can actually have a good deal on something which is slightly used. So this was one of the keys for me as well. To really always, with especially major purchases, make sure that I wasn't just lavishly spending money.
All right, good. So I guess we have that figured out, and I want to get back to some consequences of that next week with Profit First. Let's switch gears and talk about a different kind of savings, not the savings as in next 12 months, but like longer term savings and investments, because there's stuff that was interesting in the book that we read that at least I didn't know about before.
Okay.
Right. So here's interesting piece of math with in terms of compounding. Now this is greatly simplified, but just bear with me. So say you save 70% of your income. This is a big number. Like you have to be quite fortunate to be able to do that. But say you are able to save 70% of your income, then if you manage to have 4% per year interest on your savings, then within 9 years you'll be set for life, in the sense that the 4% per year interest will give the same amount of money as what the 30% of your income that you lived on before. This is irrespective. Like this is just math on percentages. Like this is irrespective of how much you earn and spend. So that's actually super fascinating, right? Because like 70% is a lot, but for us living in tech industry, like this is doable for a lot of people. Like I know people who live in Poland, so they can live cheaply, but have work remotely for a company in like New York or San Francisco, and like this is a rare opportunity. But you can live on a ridiculously small percentage of your income, and if it's probably a good idea to as you get older to save money for retirement, because like I wouldn't trust the social safety net for that.
No.
So the math for savings, like we're switching gears, like not irrespective of like when you're a young person and want to mostly spend money on growing, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. But the whole thing of compounding, even if you have really even less interest rate, whatever, but this whole idea for me of saving money, any habit or anything done, month after month after month after month, is a good habit. But saving is especially good because when you put aside $100 now, it's $100, but in a year, it's $1,200. It's more than $1,000, right? So you will not save $1,000 now. You will save it in a year, but you will not even realize because it's just $100, every month. So the idea of just putting things aside and just letting it grow It's amazing. And then the freedom that it gives you, it's great. And as you said, our retirement system is going to collapse. It is going to collapse. I mean, people are just getting older. They don't have as many kids. This is going to collapse. Or we just have to be getting retired later and later and later in life, So this system is not built for that. That's why you're totally right. When you think about it, if you save enough money, and especially, all right, when you're young, you should be spending money on things that help you grow. But then you shouldn't spend money on as you said, on frivolous things, and then you don't have the mortgage. You still live with your mom, so you don't need to pay for the apartment, right? And as you can, and actually, I think it's a little bit smarter to live longer, with parents, a little bit longer until you find, somebody to live with, so that you can really save this additional thing that you would normally spend on the rent, for example, right?
Yeah, because that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and if you put it on aside every month, it's gonna be a lot of money anyway. So that's really the key, and especially like in your case, you have a job already, and you have a very well paid job already, and you can live pretty cheaply, because of where you live, and thanks to that, you can really save lots. So you're completely right, and if you cut down on the expenses which are frivolous, then it's even better, especially now.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a different number as for the saving with interest. Like I gave a 70% savings rate, which is quite ridiculous. But like at 50%, it's 18 years, and at 30%, it's 31 years. So if you start,
it's still okay.
Yeah, it's still pretty good. Like just and this is. Like this is very simplified. This omits like taxes, but also doesn't take into the account that when you retire, then you don't need the pool of money to stay constant. Like it can decrease until the moment that you die, right? So if you start saving money at say 30 and save 30% of your income, which is doable for many middle-class people, then at the 4% per year interest rate, you'll get there within 30 years. So by the time you're 60, right? And most people will retire when they're 60, 65, right?
Yeah, so just think about it. When you're 60, you have enough money to live in the same way for the next 30 years.
For like indefinitely.
Indefinitely, actually. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic, and then you don't have to rely on the government or anything like that.
Yeah, and one interesting way that I was not aware of is ETFs. Mm-hmm. So you can just set money aside, and this is good. You can put it on time deposits, but this gives you like usually 2% per year over the inflation rate. Mm-hmm. In most banks and in most countries, which is better than nothing, but it's just 2% per year. But you can also invest, and investing can be risky. Well, investing is always risky to some extent, but I didn't know about this simple, brilliant like financial instrument, which is the ETF, which changes the equation somewhat, because it. So when you want to save money aside, then you have these managed funds in many banks and whatnot, where you accept like a degree of risk that you'll lose the money, but they're trying to sell you on greater returns. But okay, fact. The vast majority of managed funds do far worse than stock exchange indices. Mm-hmm. So one stat that I found was just 16% over the last 5 years of managed funds were better than the return on S&P 500, right, which is the American big index. And the reason why is, first of all, humans are not that good at picking stocks. Like the market might be stupid, which 2008 dot-com bubble, but much of the time, and over long enough periods of time, like the whole market is what defines the whole market, right?
Yeah.
And second thing is fees. So you have like 2%, 3%, 4% management fees, and that just cuts away all of the profits. When you take into account taxes, when you take into account the math behind compounding, then it makes no sense. Like small percentages, like the 2 or 3% per year over a long time, compounds in an insane way. Like you can get a financial calculator, and it's just an insane difference. And so what an ETF is, it's a simple financial instrument that follows indices. So essentially, like you have like one unit of an ETF for S&P 500, and it sort of buys you the actual stock of the 500 companies in the percentages of their contribution to the index, and as they change, then the contribution of them behind the ETF will also change. And this is naturally diversified because you have an index like S&P 500. You have 500 different companies from very different industries.
Exactly.
And you don't make the decision, like you don't have to learn about them. You just like follow the whole market, like 500 different companies, and you don't have management fees. Like you have, like this is all this is all automated. So you have like 0.15% or at most 0.4% in Poland per year. So like a tiny management fee. And when you look at like history behind S&P 500, like at almost any time scale, the last 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 90 years, it all yields a pretty nice return, like on average 9% per year. Even if you're the worst market timer ever and go into the market at like wrong times when you have like crashes, but keep at it for 10 plus years, you're always in front of the managed funds, especially when you take into the account that I said 16% were better over the last 5 years. But banks do this sleazy trick that they launch like 100 different managed funds, and then on the website they try to market you the best one. And like they won't show you the average of the return, but it will cherry pick the one that was just lucky.
Yeah. Right.
And this is interesting because, well, it's still risky. Like you can't invest in something you can't afford to lose. Like you have to be prepared that it's going to be away for at least 5 to 10 years, at least, and that maybe you'll be the most unlucky person on the planet and you'll be screwed completely. Like I wouldn't put all of my savings there, but like looking at long history of many stock indices and even around crashes where so many people lost their money and etc. This is like the amount of risk compared to the massive gain when you calculate the return rate over long periods of time it's massive.
Yeah, completely. It's a very good tip because, and especially what you said about the managed funds. Because, for example, I remember when I was getting my first mortgage, I was approached by it was getting done by a financial advisor, and this financial advisor also advised me to go on with this managed funds and invest some money in these managed funds. And I got screwed over really badly. Suffice to say, I didn't lose the money, but I didn't really have any return on investment. So I was better off just putting this money in a bank, than giving it to the financial advisor. So I remember this mistake vividly. So this is a very good tip to try, to not to play the game, but just go with the game of the whole market, because as you said, the whole market just stays on so many feet, and if a company goes down, but there are just 499 other companies that will just go up or something like that. So there's always it's safer. what I also kind of suggest, but only if you're a little bit risk taker, then also invest in companies you believe in. So, for example, in my case, for quite a while, I was doing this thing that I would, whenever we would buy some Apple product, I would buy also Apple stock at the same time. So, I did it for quite a while, and it was lots of money because first I was buying Apple gadgets, and then I was buying Apple stock at the same time. So I had to kind of budget twice, like for each purchase. But I remember at some point I just gave up because I knew I was just following Apple too much, the stock. The stock price. I was thinking about it too much, and I knew that I'm not a stock market kind of guy. I'm not following the stock market that much. It's not my job. So by having stock and following it and getting stressed, and especially there was a headline, Apple is doomed, and it's all the time. Apple is already all the time doomed. So the stock would go down, and I would be surprised. I would be disappointed, And then so at some point I just gave up. I stopped buying Apple stock. I just finished at some threshold which I was comfortable with, and I said, I'm going to give it up. This is the last batch I'm going to buy. I bought the last batch for this price because I thought it was a very good price anyway. And I thought, whatever happens now, I don't care. Well, since then, Apple stock almost doubled, so it wasn't a big deal. But anyway, but the thing, what I'm saying here is, if you're comfortable with a little bit more risk, I bought Apple stock because I'm using Apple products, because I use the iPhone. So I know the company is not doomed really, because I'm still loving it. So there might be some other people loving it, just like other people are. But I'm not a good stock market kind of guy, so I don't understand why Apple is valued, like why Apple is worth right now $190 and last year was $100. Like what changed really? Because from my point of view, nothing changed. So why are they worth $90 more? No clue. So that's why
nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's a hive mind. Nobody knows.
Exactly. That's why I bought a few pieces of stock of Apple and some other companies because I like them, because I care about them. But that's it. And I trust they will grow, and because I still use their products. So I'm kind of putting money where my mouth is, but not too much. Again, not a big percentage of my savings, but just something just to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in that. Like partly for technical reasons, like the fees for buying international stock are quite high in Poland, so it doesn't really make sense when you invest like small numbers. But like for me, this is like not really interesting because first of all, as you said, it's very variable. Like you earned, like for you it doubled, but like nobody knows why it goes up or down. No. And it's like it requires effort, and like you start thinking about it. Like the good thing about ETFs, about following the whole market, following the index, is that you don't think about it. You never think about it. It's completely passive. You buy every single month, period. You don't like what the price is. You just buy it. Like this is the Warren Buffett strategy. Buy ETFs every single month. No question. And it works. Like seriously, you can dig through the historical records. There was some interesting article in the past, but I don't know if I can find it. Like even if you're the worst market timer, but you stay at it for 10 plus years, like you'll always be ahead. I'm saying it still carries some risk, because the risk, like there's pretty much no risk at long timescales when you look in the past, but you can't look into the future. So who knows, if the United States collapses and you put all of the money in S&P 500, then you might be screwed. But like what's the chance of that happening, right?
I remember a joke. There was a joke about a guy who wanted to put $200 in a bank account, and he said, I don't know which bank, where to put this $200. Yeah, put it anywhere. I mean, this bank here, just put it there. Yeah, but if this bank goes bankrupt, well, this can't go bankrupt because the bank is it's guaranteed by the Polish government. So don't worry, Polish government guarantees that. Yeah, but what if the Polish government goes bankrupt? Well, if they can really not go bankrupt because it's in the EU and it goes, and they're like, but what if the whole world goes bankrupt, right?
then you have bigger problems than
$200, really.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if the United States collapses, I have bigger problems than
oh, then we have really problems, man.
Exactly. So for me, like I categorize it as low risk. So I would never put all of my money there. But I've been playing with it for the second year now, and last year I would put like $100 like every month, and this year I would put like $300 every month, and just seeing what happens. Like so far the market has been that I haven't earned anything, but that's okay. Like that's the idea. You're not trying to play the market. You're just going with the market. Like the market was on average stagnant, especially when you take into account like some fees for making a transaction every month. Okay, but like this is a long-term play. And so, I'm not encouraging anyone to go into ETFs and investing, but I'm just saying like this is something really interesting that completely like changes the perspective on investment for me, for a lot of people. And I was completely unaware of it. I think it's different in some other countries, but at least in Poland, like nobody knows about it because there's very few available, and banks don't market ETFs because
they don't want
they're
you
not
to use them.
They don't want you to use ETFs because they're not profitable because it's all automated, and they are not able to charge you fees. Like aside from like a tiny like what 0.15% per year, it's nothing, right? So it's worth researching. Is what I'm saying.
No, and on top of that, what you also did was to build a habit, a financial muscle of just spending this $100 or $300 every, not spending, saving this money, putting aside this money every month. So having this habit built. And another thing, what I really like about this, as you said, the long-term view is 10 years. So whatever happens in 10 years, you're going to be ahead. And this teaches you another thing that for many young people is a problem, long-term thinking. Like you don't think about this money in short term, that you are saving this money for a new iPhone to purchase next year. You're thinking you're saving this money long term. You're putting it aside long term. This money doesn't exist for you right now. It's and in 10 years you will see what you do with this money, but it doesn't exist for you right now. So and so this teaches you a lot more. And as you said, it's very good because the fees are not management fees of the banks, and it's all automated. So, and you depend on the whole market. So, but really, this it has all the ingredients. And I'm very disappointed very often when I talk to people and they are only thinking short term, aspects. And this is long-term thinking, and this teaches you long-term thinking because, you're young now, but you're not going to be young forever, So, so sorry to say that. I mean, no, mentally, yes, but not physically, at some point at least. But what I'm saying is that, this will compound, and these $100, $300, whatever you're putting away now in 10 years, it's going to be lots of money.
Yeah. So, that's it for today, and next week we continue talking about money, and we talk about Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So
yes.
read it now. I read it in 3 days. It's short, it's fun.